to start with a little question, okay? Who here has ever wished that they were more perfect? Stronger, faster, quicker, more beautiful? Can I see some hands? Yes, I see a lot of hands, and my hand is raised too. Growing up, I saw countless of distasteful advertisements, but also gorgeous people every single time I opened Instagram. And though, of course, they might seem unrelated at first, but they did numbers on my personal development and confidence. I would stand in front of the mirror looking at myself and point out every single thing that I don't like about myself. My eyes are too small, or I have too much fat, I have a pigmented elbow, whatever that means. And that really, really messed with my brain to the point where I had to turn to what? Pinterest quotes. You know, the one that says, "You're beautiful, you're loved." But they didn't really work. Let me read you a little excerpt from my diary. Wait a minute. It's sad, be careful. I am pretty, I am beautiful, I am gorgeous, even with acne. I tell myself this. But am I? You tell your friends that they're beautiful, they should be confident. No one should make them feel any less. I even tell myself that. But words are just words, some empty. The words get spoken, then they fall clumsily to the ground, buried by my own self-doubt. I spoke without believing. Now, I'm sure we've all heard about how our individuality is important and how you should love yourself the way that you were born. But it wasn't until when I realized where certain of my insecurities came from that I found a way to overcome them. So, let's join me on this trip. What even are imperfections anyway? So according to the Cambridge Dictionary, imperfections depict a fault or a weakness. Now that's simple enough when we look at ourselves and find things to nitpick about. This thing's wrong, or that thing bothers me. But the biological truth is much more ironic in the way that a lot of the physical attributes that we could consider imperfections are actually the tools that our civilization used for survival and growth. Let's zoom out for a second. Compared to other animals, humans seem more physically fragile. We're slower than cheetahs, we're weaker than bears. Let's look at a bear's palms, actually. Theirs is bigger, thicker, padded, can keep them warm in the winter. And compared to our hands, well, ours is smaller, more easily prone to danger, and more delicate, more easily prone to injuries, I meant. However, it is because of our more weaker hands that humans found the need to develop tools and machines to deal with heavy work. Without our more prone to injuries arms, pyramids and opera houses won't be built because our physical shortcomings is what's pushed us to explore different ways to grow and evolve. Now, you're probably wondering, why is this girl talking about humans and bears and humans being weaker than bears? But the thing is, weakness, it doesn't exist on its own. It's relative, it's born from comparison. A small bird is slower than a hawk in the way that a plane is faster than a bike. However, it is because of the bird's small nature that it can hide from predators easier, or a bike is much more convenient than a plane. What I'm trying to say here is that the world isn't so black and white where only one thing can be true at once. Imperfections, they're not fixed truth, but they're shaped by context. But now that begs the question, if imperfection depends on perspectives, then who exactly is shaping those perspectives for us? Because somewhere along the way, the very traits that has helped us survive all of these years have become things that we want to avoid at all costs. Why is that? What led to certain things becoming imperfections? Now, let's look at our own bodies. We all have hair, right? Hair is there to protect us. It helps us regulate our temperatures so that we're not too hot, we're not too cold. It also protects us from UV rays. But why is it that you and I, especially women, feel such a strong urge to remove it? Let's focus for a second on underarm hair. Over 100 years ago, underarm hair wasn't something that needed to be gotten rid of. However, in 1910, Gillette, a shaving company, launched the Milady Decollete razor, the first ever razor marketed specifically towards women. But in order to sell it, they needed a problem to solve, right? So companies started filling magazines with ads saying how underarm hair is embarrassing and too masculine. And this thing worked again 30 years later when nylon shortages from the World War II meant that women were not wearing stockings anymore, so they were wearing their bare legs out. Companies once again took the chance to advertise how hair anywhere on the body is shameful and not feminine enough. So now what happened? Every woman are now shaving their whole body, not because the doctor said, oh, hair is bad, but because the company needed to sell their products. Now, something even bigger to think about is the instability of beauty standards, because they can change so quickly and so rapidly across both time and culture. For example, in the West, during the Renaissance era, as Europe was recovering from the Black Death, the ideal woman body is bigger, fuller, with bigger hips and bigger frame, because only the richest of noble women had the wealth in order to keep that shape. They weren't hungry, they weren't starving. However, a few years later, when food supply was made more stable, the ideal woman body now is to have a teeny tiny waist made by a corset. The reason why is because only the richest of noble women had the money for a corset, had the servants to upkeep that shape, and they didn't have to work, so that's why they could keep their waist so tiny and immobile. Moving over to a different continent now, Asia. Asian beauty standards is largely dictated by women should be soft and delicate, as it reflected the cultural norms of women being more obedient. In much of Asia, beauty isn't just about what you look like, but what your look says about your character, who you are as a daughter and a wife. When beauty becomes a form of obedience, it stops being self-expression. It translates into a cultural conversation that's completely bigger than yourself. It actually becomes a push and pull over bodily autonomy, who you are as a person, to form a society of uniformity. But now, if Asian beauty standards are largely dictated by patriarchal system, in the West, a lot of the beauty standards are made by millionaires wanting to sell you their products. Social media is flooded with influencers trying to sell you the next lip liners, the fat-dissolving tea, whatever that means, or that surgeon in Beverly Hills who's gonna help you achieve that ultra-hourglass body look. This forms a vicious cycle where the public figure directly profits from the insecurities that they helped create. Now, when profit-driven media dictates what beauty should look like, you're only given with an illusion of choice, thinking that you'll be more beautiful, thinking you'll be more attractive and desirable if you go under scissors to achieve that dream face or that dream body, when in reality, you're just funding an industry that thrives on self-doubt and losing your true selves, very healthy selves, along the way. I assure you, if you were to try to embody all of these beauty ideals at once, you would probably self-combust. Because what's considered beautiful or perfect in one time or place could be completely different in another. Is perfection truly worth fighting for in exchange for our authenticity? The very differences that make us unique human beings. Physical perfection is a completely nuanced topic, dictated by class, wealth, and culture, not by health and biology. You can't really decide what family, what class, what money you're born into, can you? Yet those are the defining factors of what beauty looks like. And another factor that defines what beauty is money. In this capitalist economy, your insecurities are incredibly profitable. Now, are you sure you want to be putting money into a pocket of a millionaire selling you wrinkle cream that probably doesn't work? In 5 years, I can guarantee that there will be hundreds of more ads telling you to fix something that you didn't even know was a problem. I think it's okay if you block out the noise. I know it's easier said than done, right? Because how can you love something that you've spent your whole life hating? Well, the first thing, the most important thing, is knowing that you are not alone. You saw all of those hands raised, right? Feeling insecure at this point is almost like a personal right, because every single person is going through it at least twice. No one is going to stop those lose fat in 5 minutes ads from popping up on your feed. It's on you to build the mental filter for them. What's wrong with you isn't your bad hair day, but it's what's going on inside of here. Now, Carl Rogers, a psychologist, once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." Now, embracing yourself, you, and all the past versions of you isn't about staying stuck. Think about job interviews when they ask you for both your strength and your weaknesses. It forces you to introspect, to look at yourself, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and how you can improve upon them, how you can grow to become a vital treasure for that company. But now, if you can't convince yourself that you're enough, how can you convince a company to employ you? Now, I'm 18, I'm about to go through that whole process of asking for a job. So this talk really resonates with me, and I'm sure a lot of the high school students sitting here today. I'm still trying to be comfortable in my own body and be confident in myself. But I know that I can't get rid of this body. This is the mind space that you have to live with until the end of time. So instead of standing in front of the mirror and pointing out things that I don't like about myself, I try to change the script. I'll spin the narrative. I'll think of every single thing that I don't like about myself, and I'll think of how to change that perspective. For example, I have a large stomach. Well, it's keeping my vital organs alive, and it's keeping me warm in the winter. Or else, if it's mental, if I'm procrastinating on my work, for example, I'll give myself a prize at the end as an incentive to start. Because my dream life is going to build itself, will it? Accept what you can't change, and change what you can't accept. That's what's in here. Because how can you find the mental space to grow and build the life that you love if all of your energy is spent dissecting who you are? Imperfections, they're not something that you should be afraid of, because honestly, perfection is boring. How do you grow from there? How do you evolve? Remember that only a portion of the universe is observable, in the same way that you can only see who you are right now, not who you're going to become. So, let your shortcomings be your tools for growth, for reinvention, and for becoming the truer and kinder versions of yourselves. Thank you.